there, welcome back. This is another week of shows. We're starting off with a disaster. Basically, it's Lost Soul, and since the Lost Souls of the making of the Island of Dr. Moreau, the brand of Val Kilmer disaster, I had to watch Island of Dr. Moreau. Yes, I bought the Blu-ray on the cheap just to see it, to talk about it along with the documentary. Honestly, I will never make that kind of mistake again, because it is one of the worst films I've ever seen. I've seen it twice now. I saw it when it was in video and was released. If you'd never see it again because I'm doing the video on the documentary, watch it again. A lot to say about it. Right. But I'll never make that mistake again. Oops. Turkey shoot. This is the exploitation version of a similar idea of stuck in an island, people getting murdered. Another film that went completely wrong. But I'm not talking about that this week. I'm talking about that next week when I do the exploitation Brian Trenchard Smith triple bill, which that's look forward to next week. But this week we have Lost Souls and Island of Dr. Moreau. I'm not quite back yet doing the Bresson stuff and things like that. I do have Balthazar, which I'm going to be doing next week. But this week I'm slowly getting back into this, and to be honest, I've had to watch Island of Dr. Moreau, and I've been watching vampire films for a video later in the week. At some point, I don't want to watch a Bresson movie after all this kind of all these kind of movies that are less arty. It just didn't seem a good thing. It didn't feel fair to the Bresson movie, so I didn't do it. So I put it off. So this is the replacement. Okay, I'll start talking about the Lost Souls first, or Lost Soul, which is the making of. Then I'll get to the film itself. It's easier to talk about the making of first, because the film, everything's wrong with the film kind of gets explained in the documentary. Now, the Island of Dr. Moreau is obviously based on a novel by H.G. Wells. It was made as Island of the Lost Souls in the 30s, starring Charles Laughton, which is a decent film. It's on Eureka Master Cinema. I've got a steelbook of that. It's not my favourite 30s horror movie, but it's well done. It's just one of those films you're thinking, well, Laughton and Bela Lugosi and stuff, this should have been better. It's good, but it should have been better. It just feels like it never quite lived up to the promise of Charles Laughton as Dr. Moreau. But it's still enjoyable. There's another version of the 70s that Burt Lancaster was in, Don Taylor directed, that I've never seen. I've heard it's pretty boring, which is the reason why I've never actually seen it. Is like, from what I gather, it's a film you watch and you've seen it and that's it. It's one of those 70s blancmange movies where the cast, it seems to be made because of the cast members available rather than anyone get a vision of the film. Now, the Island of Dr. Moreau, the newest version, was originally meant to be made by Richard Stanley, who's directed Hardware and Dust Devil. The Hardware is a very conventional, like, cyberpunk horror film. It's well made, but none of the ideas are particularly new. It's just how it's made, it really makes it work. But it's a Terminator Robocop influenced film. It's not unique in any possible way, but the acting's kind of rough, but it's enjoyable for what it is. It's a fun little cyberpunk horror movie. That's all it'll ever be. But it's set in a post-apocalyptic world, which creates some interest. Then he followed up with Dust Devil, which I like a lot more. It's a very weird film. It was done by Miramax. The people who made it they didn't like it. It was weird. It was based on myth, South African myth. They couldn't quite work out how to sell it, so it became a film that was dumped and didn't do much for anybody. But it got cult following since then. People have started to appreciate it. There's some interesting stuff going on here. It's much more of a personal film for Richard Stanley. It was his first big personal film, and it got dumped. But after that, he try to make Eleanor Dr. Moreau. It was meant to be like a $7 or $8 million film. It was meant to be a low budget film in the vein of Hardware and Dust Devil. Bit more money involved in them, but still within that level of it's a handmade type of film. It's not meant to be a mega budget film. So he wrote the script, and New Line got interested in the script. He gave it to Ed Pressman, who's produced a lot of great films like Phantom of Paradise, Badlands. You know, he started with De Palma and Dennis Malick, and he's kept on going. He's worked with Oliver Stone. He worked with John Milius and Conan. You know, he was involved in the Judge Dredd movie, the first one. He's done a lot of projects, some good, some bad, but a lot of them are really interesting. He seems to make films he wants to make, and sometimes they go wrong, but there's a lot of good stuff from his production company. So he had to deal with New Line. This all comes from the documentary. He and New Line deal with New Line. They were interested in what he was doing, so he brought him Dr. Moreau, and they got interested-ish. They thought there was something there, and they developed it. Richard Stanley, they always thought it was a bit weird. I think the plan was always to get rid of him, but I don't know how, because it's a low budget film, and maybe it might work. Had to keep it limited. You know, unfortunately, then they got ambitions beyond the scope of the film, because the film's a dark and twisted story of hubris, and there's lots of monsters, lots of gore. It was going to be an R-rated film. It was going to be dark. It should have remained a low budget film. It should have kept to low budget actors. But instead, no, we're going to spend money on this. We've got some money. This was New Line not long before they invested in Lord of the Rings. This was when they evolved from the Freddy films, and it was now going towards Seven and doing films with like stars like Bruce Willis and things like that. So they were trying to push the budgets up and do some more bigger budget films, which was completely wrong for this film. I mean, you watch a lot of New Line films at the time. There's a lot of films that they made that were like, why do you make this film this budget? It seems to be a lower budget film, but you're up to budget to it, but it's still not like a... They made Last Man Standing, which was Bruce Willis, Walter Hill, Yojimbo remake set in gangster era, which wasn't very good. They were making that kind of film. They made some stuff like Seven, which worked, but Seven was like the bastard child that no one wanted, then it became a hit, and it was like, oh. But a lot of films are overproducing, so that's when they decided to hire Marlon Brando. Yeah, that was never going to help the film. The original cast was Marlon Brando as Moreau. There was Bruce Willis as the lead character, and it was going to be James Woods as in the part that Val Kilmer eventually played, which was assistant to Moreau. That was a cast. That would have been a really interesting film. It seems like a really cool cast for that kind of story. Because if you're thinking Bruce Willis at the time, he was making stuff like 12 Monkeys, and he was trying to expand from Die Hard, so he seemed to be trying to push himself out a bit there. And James Woods is always good in the kind of stubby parts, and Brando's Moreau sounded interesting. And originally they were going to give it to Roman Polanski, going to fire Richard Stanley and give it to Roman Polanski. But Richard Stanley insisted on meeting Brando, and Brando ended up liking him, so Polanski was chucked as an option, saying, no, let's keep the budget lower and let's get Richard Stanley to do it, because he's done these other weird films. Brando likes him, we'll give him a shot. And they find locations, they do all the pre-production, everything's going well-ish. It's getting there. I mean, there are signs early on that Richard Stanley's not good in these big budget films, he's not experienced. But there's also a suggestion throughout this film that they never gave him a strong line producer who could help him focus on what was needed and what wasn't. Like, he needed a first assistant director or someone who could focus him, and he never got that. So he never got the kind of specific direction he needed to execute his film with that kind of budget. Because he was used to low budget films and everything's done with a lot more care and more hand produced. So all hell broke loose. The first couple of days were a disaster. Val Kilmer was cast. Bruce Willis had to drop out because of some reason. I think it was said with a divorce in the documentary. Val Kilmer was cast. then, because he was big after Batman, then Val Kilmer was also getting divorced. He needed to get rescheduled so his part would be smaller, so he ended up taking James Woods' part. So James Woods gets chucked. And then they have someone else, Rob Morrow, in the lead part. At this point, it's all going south, obviously. Then Marlon Brando's son shoots the boyfriend of his sister. So he's got major problems. So he does not want to be there either. And knows no sure when he's going to show up. So it's all a disaster, even then. Then Kilmer shows up, and according to this documentary, he's a nightmare. He does not get on with the director. He's testing the director. He's trying to see how far he can push him, and Richard Stanley's not used to this thing. Then they have a hurricane that happens as they start the shoot. So they barely get a chance to shoot anything. There's not even any cover sets they can use because it's a hurricane. And by the time that's all over, Richard Stanley's fired. So he doesn't really have a chance to really do Dr. Moreau. He does a couple of little scenes. And it doesn't go well, and he's been fired. He gets paid off, money-wise is great, but as it says in the extras and in the general documentary, it pushes him from working for years. It destroys his confidence. He's just a shell of a man after that. That just destroys him. And it's a real shame. He was a talented director. He was promising, and he got utterly destroyed by the system. And I think you can pretty much blame New World for not seeing there was a problem and not seeing that they needed to support the director. He's a bit eccentric, but find ways to support him to get this done. Because obviously Brando liked him, and Brando's hard to control, notoriously, but he seemed to bond with Richard Stanley, and he really seemed to they would go out and get drunk together and things like that. They get on well. And Brando seemed to see what the idea of the film was, and he was behind it, and it was one of the few projects Brando seemed to be really interested in. It was getting his imagination going. He was obviously committed to doing it. He wanted to do it. There was something there. So then, by the time all that happens, John Frankenheimer takes over. John Frankenheimer, a great director from the 60s, a director who I really like. He's a really wonderful director. But he's been through a bad period. He's done some films that haven't worked. He's moved back into television and done some good work in television, which probably got him the job because he's starting to bring himself back up. But he made a public battle with alcoholism. But he's not the John Frankenheimer of the 60s who was doing all these great films. He's the Frankenheimer who made The Prophecy, it's called, some awful horror movie in the 80s, or late 70s, early 80s, and a bunch of films that hadn't worked after that. And his career had been on the downswing for a while. And he was a director whose passion had gone, and he was 70, and he was just doing the film to get back in the game, basically. He had no real passion for it. He would never have chosen it if he had a chance, if he had an option, but he wanted to work. And there was a chance to work with Brando. So he comes on, man, he never gets the film. He doesn't get the passion behind the film. He does not understand the film, which becomes obvious when I talk about the actual film. It's obvious this is a director who should not be making this film. Maybe in the 60s when he was at his peak, he could have found a thread in the film that would have been personal, that would have worked. But now it was all his bad points came up in this film. All his weaknesses as a director were there for you to see in this film, and none of his good points were there. So he came on board, he tried to get the cast and crew around him, but his old style manner of production annoyed everybody, and people thought, a lot of these people who'd been hired to the project were really into the Richard Stanley idea of the project. They really wanted to do this project. There was a passion behind it, because it was this weird thing trying to sneak through the Hollywood system. This was a unique, weird film that everyone was trying to get behind. And the director had been fired, and the script was going to be written, so people were trying to leave the project. Some were allowed to leave. A lot of people, anyone who had been cast as one of the animal creatures couldn't leave because they had been live cast for the wake-up. So a lot of these actors are now stuck there, and contractually they could not get out of the contract. So that did not make for a good set of actors. Also, Frankenheimer rubbed him up all up the wrong way. And no one hated Frankenheimer, no one was hated by Frankenheimer more than Val Kilmer, who they did not get on. They really did not get on. According to this documentary, according to almost every report I've ever had of this film, they did not get on. David Thewlis came aboard as the new lead. He was just taught off naked, and he was starting to get a good rep for being a good actor. You'd never really tell in this film, because he looks, if he wants to go home the whole way through the film. Brando, by the time he arrives, and his chosen director has been fired by the studio, and he's been replaced by a guy who's obviously past his prime, and who's, according to most reports, behaving badly to the actors and behaving like an egotist. Brando doesn't take this well and just decides pretty much this is a doomed film, and he will fuck with John Frankenheimer as much as possible. Which is one of the fun things of watching the documentary, just how much Brando hated Frankenheimer too. You know, he wasn't taking it seriously anymore. The person going on the board was gone, so he just didn't need to. He just wasn't going to deal with this crap. So he just fucked with Frankenheimer, which is the fun part of the documentary, because he was just messing with everybody at that point. And there's this point where they kind of earned it before even Brando even got there. So he wasn't in a good mood after the problem with his son as well. So he was stuck in this massive heat. He was overweight and he's having to deal with a has-been director. And it was just impossible. If you see, and when you watch the film, the passion is just not there. He just doesn't want to be there, obviously. So this film goes on and on. They rewrite the script all the time. So there's a script that was written by Richard Stanley, then rewritten by Michael Herr, who did Apocalypse Now and Full Metal Jacket. Then it was rewritten by Wallen Green, who was The Wild Bunch. These were all when Richard Stanley was director. He had a lot of good writers working on the script, and they even said those two writers brought a lot of good stuff that he hadn't thought of that really made it work even better than he had. So he was really happy with the script. Then Frankenheimer came in, destroyed the script, took chunks out of it, to the point where it's incoherent. So now I'm going to talk about the actual film, because I'm now going to the film and I'll switch back to the documentary after I discuss more about the film. The film is a disaster. It's a horror movie. It's not scary at all. As a sci-fi movie, it's incoherent. As a drama, it's shameful. It's unbelievable someone with Frankenheimer's experience can make a film this bad. This is the worst film made by a director who's made great films. You cannot believe this is the same director who made Manchurian Candidate or Seconds. So I'm speaking as a massive Frankenheimer fan. I'm almost a Frankenheimer apologist. Because I really like Frankenheimer. I love 52 Pickup and I really like Frankenheimer. But this is appalling. This is like shamefully bad. There's no middle act. It starts, there's about 10 minutes in the middle, then it ends, and it's almost like the last third is like what should have been 15 minutes extended to 30 minutes. You know, it's just this mess of scenes that go on and on and on, and you feel that should have been cut down to pace, but they weren't, because none of the set had been filmed, so that there was no impact to anything. And the whole movie's like that. I mean, Brando appears and it's obvious he does not want to be there. He has no passion, he hates being there, and he's completely uncommitted. Completely, there's no curiosity to his performance. I mean, Brando could be a pest to directors, but when you get curious about a character, the lights went on and you'd see him do some really great stuff with it. Even later, Brando could do that. Not here, I mean, even 5 years before that, he did The Freshman, which was a minor film, but he was really charming in it, and he really was working hard on it, and you could see he wanted to be there. Even a year or two before, he did John DeMarco, which he was really good in as well. So, I mean, in this period, he was still making films that he had some passion for. But the performance here is flat as a pancake. He does not want to be there, and you feel that him and Frank were on so badly that half the scenes weren't shot. You just feel at a certain point they ran out of time with Brando and they killed him off. There's lots of setup scenes that don't seem to have been shot. Stuff that obviously should be there that weren't there. And it's like, that's what you get when you mess with a big actor who can make your life misery. Val Kilmer's also in it. Now Val Kilmer, despite everything that happened behind the scenes, is the one bright spot in this film. I wouldn't say he's good, but he's eccentric. He seems to have spotted he's in a disaster, and he's just amused himself. And that's way more entertaining than anything else in the film. He's much more fun than anyone else. He's hamming it up, he's doing imitations of Brando. His part doesn't make any sense. Again, with him, there are points where you know there's bits missing from the development. His character is completely incoherent, but he hams it up so much that it's fun to watch. So, he's the bright spot. I mean, you just wait for Kilmer to show up during most of this movie because he's the only one who has anything that's fun involved. Anytime he's with David Thewlis is bad in this film, but he just looks like he's defeated. He turned up after they messed up with Richard Stanley, and obviously the idea of working with Brando and John Frankenheimer was probably appealing, but it looked like he'd been defeated pretty early on. And the only time he's ever had any fun is when he's working with Kilmer. Because I heard in a few interviews that those two actually get on pretty well. And you can tell because they're having fun during their scenes together. Like, they've enjoyed, like Kilmer's putting little flowers in his hair and things, and he's going along with it, and he's like, well, these are the only two actors who are having fun. And it only happens when they're together. When David Thewlis is apart from Kilmer, he's just as bored as everyone else. And he just looks exhausted. He just looks like a person who's exhausted and just wants to go home. Frieza Balk's in it, and she's a good actress, but she doesn't have much to do. Again, you feel like her part was ripped apart in the rewrites because it's incoherent. There are points of interest there, but nothing's ever built up. It's all chopped to pieces. All the monsters look like they should be shot. There's a couple of monsters that look good, but a lot of them look as if they should be shot under darkness. They're meant to be shot from atmosphere. And then Frankenheimer arrived and turned all the lights on. So I think there's meant to be a tacky element to the monsters, like their experiments gone wrong, so they're not going to look beautiful, but they're meant to look as if they're going to be shot in like the thing lighting, with a different hues that would create a sense of wonder, but also a sense of normality. They're never shot properly. They're just shot as if to say, we can't shoot anything else. Kilmer's away, Brando's away. Let's shoot the monsters and do some stuff with them and have them jump around a lot. But why are they doing it? I don't know. That's what it feels like. That film, it just feels like Frankenheimer doesn't understand monsters. He doesn't understand how to shoot monsters. So the movement's all wrong. The build up to them's always wrong. Everything's wrong about that film. And yeah, there's lots of problems because of what the studio did. But a lot has to go blame has been Frankenheimer, because there's lots of stuff like a competent director should know. I need A to B to C to D. Like, he should be able to talk to the actors and say, I need this, this and this to get from A to B to C, so it's a good, solid film. And that doesn't seem to happen. It seems that the actors are ignoring him, they don't have any respect for him. And he has to shoot around him, there's like voiceovers and little points that, like 3 points throughout the film. So it's not enough voiceover to feel like there's an actual voiceover plan. It feels like the voiceovers there to fill in scenes that have been shot. Like, there's a whole middle act seems to be a voiceover, like a 2-minute voiceover, David Thewlis, that explains why we got from point A to point B, where there should probably be 20 minutes of film that isn't there. That's how bad this film is. It's just horrible to watch. You just feel yourself losing the... I mean, the trouble is, the first 5-10 minutes, which followed the Stanley script, have potential because there's build and there's suggestion of suspense. Then as soon as the first monster shows up, it's dead. It's just dead. And any build-up of suspense is gone. And they can never rebuild it up. Because they're always going from person to person, but there's no identifiable character to follow, because the lead character is depressed. And the other characters are meant to follow. You develop them for a little bit, then they disappear for a while. You develop someone else for a little bit, then they disappear. There's no build to any character. Every character's like fitting in for a bit, then it's pushed it away to the side, and then another character's for a bit, and she's pushed away to the side. It's like, it's a spaghetti junction of characters that no one has built properly, and it's like, how can a professional director not see this as a problem? I need to know how to deal with the actors and makeup. And no one projects properly. A lot of characters who had potential are in the background. A lot of characters who are hamming it up on the foreground. It just feels like whoever Frankenheimer liked as an actor got the foreground, and whoever he didn't like so much, they get the background. And it just feels like it's not directed properly. And from what I can gather about the film, there were stuff like that going on. It was like Frankenheimer didn't like certain actors, they get pushed to the background. He liked other actors. I'm saying that it's a part even in the film, even you don't know, I haven't even seen the documentary, but it's a part he didn't like certain actors, and that got through to the film itself. I mean, it's amazing because a year later he made Ronin, which was a terrific little film, you know, a suspense with De Niro. It really worked. And it was good in ways that all this is bad. It's like, it had character points of view and it went A to B to C, it was bad. This one is like, what the hell is going on? I can see that they should have been very happy with Frankenheimer, because this was a disastrous thing. You know, it was just bad. It was like, I know you want to deliver something out of a disaster, but this is less than something. This is just incompetence. So I mean, the after effect is Kilmer's reputation, which had a big dive after the stories come through of this one. David Thewlis went on and had not a normal career, good films and bad films, just a normal professional career. Brando barely worked again after this. Frankenheimer made 2 films after this, one which was Ronin, another one which was a Ben Affleck vehicle, which had problems of its own, which wasn't very good, and that was the last film before he died. And, you know, so his career was in the downturn. This was like the end of David's career. He'd have a little bit of an upsurge and downsurge again. And it was just like one of those films that never really came together at all. Richard Stanley is now getting back into films. He's making a film with Nicolas Cage this year, The Colour Out of Space, which is H.P. Lovecraft adaptation. He's been doing short films for a while, built himself back up after this experience, so now he's getting back into filmmaking. So there's now more interest in him again, that I think people have seen this documentary and realised he kind of gets screwed over here. It wasn't his fault. So he's now starting to come back, but that's like 20 years of films we should have got but we didn't get from him, which is a shame because he was an interesting director, you know. Bit eccentric but interesting, you know, which is a shame you're not going to get those, you've lost those films. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this rambling video. There's no other way to talk about this without being rambling, because it's a rambling production of our disaster, so that's the only way you can probably do it. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back soon with another video.